Hey everybody, I am up bright and early for the U.S. Mountain Running Championships, which will take place in about 5 hours. Sunapee, New Hampshire is about a 2-hour drive away from me, so I'm packing and getting ready and doing some thinking about the race. It is a balmy 39 degrees right now. I think it's going to be in the 40s during the race and maybe even a little bit colder on top of the mountain. Doesn't look like it will rain though. It appears to be cloudy for most of the day. But we got 2 to 3 inches of rain yesterday in the Northeast, so I'm imagining the trails are going to be a muddy mess, which will make it very interesting. The ski slopes coming down could be very, very dangerous because ski trails tend not to be packed like normal running trails, and there's machinery going up and down, mowing and whatnot, so I imagine that's going to be really, really messy. Anyway, of interesting note, I went on the Ultra sign-up website this morning to see who was registered, and they have me ranked first overall in the 50 and over category, which is interesting because Ultra sign-up does those rankings based on previous results that have been processed by their website. And it's been so long now since I have been a trail runner that I forget about my exploits. It's almost like a life that I don't even remember anymore. But it was interesting to see my ranking, which was way ahead of anybody else in the group. Obviously, I'm not going to finish in first place over 50. It would be kind of fun if I were able to finish in the top 5 in my age group at a national championship without any run training, carrying an extra 29 pounds, but that's just a fun thought. I'm going to see what happens, see how I feel out there. Hopefully my body cooperates, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. I didn't get much sleep last night because I've been having sciatica for the past couple days. I think it's related to the digging. It's pretty stressful on the lower back and core and spine, throwing lots of clay up into the air and over a pile. So we'll see how that goes. It's kind of difficult right now to get my shoes on and off because of the sciatica. I really can't bend down to touch my feet without extreme pain. So I'm not sure how the drive is going to go. I'm not sure how that may or may not be a factor in the race, but it kept me from sleeping, so I didn't even have to wait for the alarm. I was just up and got out of bed and came down here. Anyway, off to New Hampshire. We'll see you in a bit. Toodaloo. Doing my morning weigh-in before I get in the car. 171.6. That is a new all-time heaviest. I am now at the Mount Sunapee ski area in Newbury, New Hampshire, and I just picked up my number at registration, and I was talking to teammates, some of whom got here yesterday. I drove up this morning, and they ran the course yesterday in the rain. We got 2 to 3 inches of rain yesterday, and they said it is a swamp, that the single track is 8 inches of mud. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like today after we do the first loop, men and women. It's just going to be a muck fest. And the downhills, they said, are super slippery and muddy, and that's only going to get worse as the race goes on. So I'm thinking I didn't bring the proper shoes. I'm going to be running in cross-country flats, which have a little bit of traction. And they've got a rock plate so I can land on sharp objects and I won't hurt my feet. And the padding is sufficient. The main reason I choose them is they're really lightweight and small, so I can dance around things much easier. But they don't have big lugs. Although with this amount of mud, I'm not sure that even big lug shoes are going to make much of a difference. I don't know. It's really windy on the mountain, so it's going to be cold on top. I'm thinking about wearing gloves, my roller ski gloves, which are cut-proof gloves. So people that work with sharp objects, chefs, and other industries where you can get cut, these gloves keep you from getting cut. So I use them for roller skiing
and I'm thinking I may be going down a bunch today and landing on my hands behind me, which scares me because of my shoulder, but better to have gloves on if I'm going to be falling down and holding myself up with my hands. Anyway, my sciatica was terrible on the way over here. Oh, man. That was a rough drive, so I don't know what's going to happen in the race. I'm not going to say that that's going to be a limiting factor. I've had so many instances where I feel terrible before the race, and then the gun goes off, and I'm filled with adrenaline, and I have a completely different body. So that may happen today, and the sciatica may not factor at all, but that was a rough drive. Ooh, also of interesting note, while I was waiting in line for the bathroom, I bumped into David Norris, who was one of the top skiers in the United States, cross-country skiing, for many years. He was on the World Cup team. I don't think he ever made an Olympics, but he was always right there, and he was often national champion. He won the American Birkebeiner several times. He shattered the course record on the Mount Marathon race in Alaska, which is arguably the most difficult mountain race in the world. You climb over 3,000 feet in about a mile and then turn around and descend 3,000 feet in that same mile. It's just ridiculously steep and very slippery as well because of the broken up shale and scree. Anyway, we were chatting a bit about what it was going to be like today in these conditions, and he was actually pretty pumped for it. But also we were talking about ski fitness and how that translates into run fitness. A lot of cross-country skiers move into mountain running and trail running, especially as their careers come to an end. I think David is 34 now. He's retired from the U.S. ski team, and he's a little bit bigger than your average runner because of ski training, but he was never a big skier. But you see a lot of skiers in their mid-30s and even early 40s. Andy Newell from the Bennington area is now doing really well on the trail running circuit, and he's a 4-time Olympian, maybe a 5-time Olympian, I forget, in skiing. Anyway, David's been cleaning up the trail race scene as well around the country. He is really dominating, and he's with me. He thinks that ski training is a great way to prepare for mountain and trail running, although skiers also run a lot. I do not. So a big chunk of what skiers do for training is running. So they have that skill under their belt already, but they develop an even bigger VO2 max than runners do with the ski-specific training, roller skiing, on snow skiing, running with poles, etc. So I'm curious to see how he does today. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this race. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's an experiment. I have zero expectations. Being ranked first in the startup list is kind of a joke. I'll be lucky if I get top 5 in my age group, 55 to 59. It's a national championship. There's a lot of super talent here. Just my teammates alone are going to be duking it out for first and second in the country. But then there's a couple other known racers that I have competed against in the past that will be up there as well. So if I can luckily somehow put myself into the top 5, that will be a huge success for this experiment, but I am not in any way expecting that to happen. I'm just going to go and see how I feel. So on that note, I'm going to go warm up and see how I feel. Okay, it is now June 5th, and I wanted to give myself a couple days to unpack the U.S. Mountain Championships and to also see what the impact was on my legs. What kind of DOMs was I going to experience? The downhills were pretty intense, and with the added weight, I wanted to see how this might be different than races that I have done in the past where I have been better prepared. Anyway, real quickly, I ended up in 4th place for the 55 to 59 age group, so that is good data with almost no run training. And on the climbs, I was actually the 3rd fastest in the 55 to 59. But on the downhills, I got smoked by everybody, which is interesting because in the past, downhill running was always my forte. In fact, the people that I competed against would often tell me, hey, I've got to be way ahead of you at the top of the climb because you're going to smoke me on the downhill. Well, that is no longer the case. I took it pretty, I don't want to say casually because I was definitely racing on the downhills, but I was so slow compared to the other athletes that were passing me. In fact, the gentleman that got third in 55 to 59, he passed me halfway down the first downhill, and he came by like a freight train. And I couldn't even stay with him for 10 feet. I tried, but it was so dangerous that even if I could have eked out a little bit more speed, it wasn't worth it. A lot of people got injured, including my teammate Steve, who got second in the 55 to 59 age category after hitting a tree with his face on the steepest downhill. He just went right forward and the tree took his head and stopped him cold. And there were photographers doing live stream and photographs at that moment because it was the steepest part of the course. And both of them were like, oh my God, is he dead? He hit the tree so hard and it was so loud. They were all panicked, but he got up, continued the race, did another lap, and ended up with the silver medal. Extraordinary. And my teammate Todd ended up winning the 55 to 59. So my team, CMS, had a first, a second, and a fourth. So we won the U.S. title team championship, which is fun. But I was way behind those guys. They got me on the uphill, which I expected because I'm really not running, but they really opened up and blew me away on the downhills. So anyway, it was an interesting race because I noticed something right from the start. My heart rate was low and my legs felt heavy, but I wasn't sure how much of that was mental and how much of that was physical, because your body can project into the future and say, this is new, we don't know what this is or how it's going to go. This is not something you're accustomed to anymore. So we're going to cause you to use caution by making your legs feel really tired right away. And that's going to keep you from putting on the gas because we don't know if you can survive this. So I was tuning into my heart rate for that entire first climb. And it was like 150 to 152, which is not high. At the Wachusett race, the week prior, my heart rate was between 160 and 165, which is closer to a running race heart rate. Still not exactly where I'd want to be if I was running a lot, but this was more than 10 beats less. So I'm pretty sure that my brain was doing some calculations and saying, let's not use too much too soon. This is Future Tim interrupting that previous recording because I just got back from a roller ski where I was unpacking the race even more, which is why I wait until a few days after to really allow it to fully marinate. And I discovered some things on my ski that were not in that earlier recording. So I'm going to take advantage of my System 2 thinking, as Daniel Kahneman might have called it, where I'm going to slow down and deliberately engage with the elements of that race experience. A System 1 analysis would be the one that you have immediately after the race. You have this gut instinct of what happened. But there's going to be a lot that you missed because it's quick and dirty. The race was good, the race was bad. I kicked butt, my butt got kicked. But the longer you allow yourself to reflect and unpack and become present to different moments in that race, the more you see. And in my understanding, this is the purpose of consciousness, to go backwards in time and to unpack what you experienced, especially those really salient or life-altering moments, when you have the time, and to discover more that you didn't see right away in that System 1 analysis. So what was revealed to me on this ski, it was my soleus, my Achilles tendon, and the bone spurs in my heel that were the limiting factor, and that was immediate. So the moment I started the race, we have maybe 100 meters of flat, and then we go right uphill, probably a 30% slope. And instantly I could feel my Achilles tendon and the bone spurs that attach them to my heel starting to scream. And I thought, yikes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be on my toes for 5 of the 9 miles that we ran. So that was the limiting factor. My quads felt heavy, my quads were tired, but that wasn't the limiting factor. My heart rate definitely was not the limiting factor. It was in the low 150s for the entire race. So it was not a hard cardiovascular effort. Quads were tired, but they never failed on me, not even on the downhills, not even starting lap number 2. It was my soleus, which is the lower part of your calf, the Achilles tendon, and the bone spurs. And as the race progressed, they really were on fire. And I think the reason that that wasn't immediately obvious to me until now is that that's not a muscular effort kind of pain. When you go back and think about a race, you think mentally about dealing with muscular fatigue or cardiovascular fatigue. Those are the things that tend to stop you. But you seldom think about other types of pain, or at least in my experience, that is the case. So they were immediately the point where the governor got engaged. There was a part of my brain that said, this isn't safe, you're going to snap your Achilles tendon. So you need to back off, you need to not put as much pressure on your toes when you're running. So slow down, don't bound up the hill. But you forget about that because it's not muscular endurance pain. It's not fatigue pain. And it wasn't until this ski that I noticed that, because I was going through my DOMS experience, because the day after the race, I went for a roller ski and my legs felt perfect. And today I'm roller skiing, again, with legs that are difficult to walk on, and there's no soreness whatsoever when I'm roller skiing. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe roller skiing does not translate into running, at least not the muscular strength that you develop in your legs from roller skiing. My glutes are probably helping me in running, and they are definitely getting stronger, but your glutes don't get beat up on the downhill, so I don't have DOMS in my glutes. It's my quads. But I'm using my quads differently than I would to run. So that's how this thought occurred to me. I was going through the progression of my DOMS and noticing, roller skiing makes your legs strong, but that may not help you in running. And then as I went backwards through the past few days, I remember I couldn't walk immediately after the race, not because of DOMS. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. My bone spurs and my soleus and Achilles were on fire after the race. I was limping all over. And the next day, I did not have DOMS yet, but my bone spurs were screaming at every step. And then, on Tuesday, they were fine. They stopped. And that's when the DOMS hit. So I'd forgotten all about that because I'm just thinking about my muscular fatigue pain, the tearing of the muscles. Anyway, this is the value of deliberative conscious thinking, system 2 thinking, to go back and to slowly unpack and not make an assessment about your race quickly with system 1 thinking. What is the quick and dirty feeling that I have immediately after the race? It was good or it was bad? Which part of me failed? Well, obviously it was my legs that failed. No, that's not the case. And it took quite a few days and system 2 thinking to fully unpack it and get to the point where I realized, that was kind of stupid to do this race, because I didn't consider how much my Achilles, my soleus, and my bone spurs have been bothering me since 2013. It's been 12 years now that I started to develop those bone spurs, first in the right foot and then in 2015 on the left foot. I know that's a limiting factor, but because I don't run so much anymore, I'd totally forgotten about it. All I was thinking about is muscular effort and cardiovascular endurance. And now that I'm factoring in my injuries in my ankles and Achilles, I'm realizing that was really dumb to run that race. Anyway, back to the previous video. So it was interesting. You learn so much about your mind and about your body in a race effort, which is why I race. Not to get the position, but to see what certain types of training are going to yield as far as results in comparison to other people and the training they're engaged in. But more importantly, to see what happens in my body and to see what happens in my thinking, both subconsciously and consciously. When the narratives start to show up, what do I do with them? Are they telling me to quit? This is too hard. I can't do it. This is scary. Look at those guys getting away from me. Look at your heart rate. Why is it so low? Why are your legs so tired? What do you do with all that? Basically, I just observe it and I smile into it and I move with it and I just keep taking steps. I'm not thinking about the big picture. And it was nice to see that that was still there. Because mountain running hurts. It's not like road running. It hurts in ways that you can't experience until you do it. It's a lot like a stair climb. Your quads are just screaming the whole time. What do you do with that? Do you give up? Do you pull back? My heart rate was fine, which means I can take this. So it's really just about mentally softening into it and saying, yeah, that hurts, but it's okay. It's okay that it hurts. I don't have to call it suffering. It's just some intensity in my legs, and we're good. My heart rate says that we're good. And if my legs start to fail, well, I'll just slow down. That's okay too. So this was good data across the board. The sciatica didn't bother me at all in the race, which I suspected might be the case. In fact, it hasn't bothered me since. And now I'm wondering if the downhill pounding did something to my spine or lower back that unpressurized the nerve. I don't know, but I haven't had any pain since the race at all. I do have massive DOMs. Tuesday is when it really started to hit me, and today, Thursday, my legs are just as sore as they were on Tuesday. It doesn't feel like anything has really shifted. And by the way, my weight went up to 172.4 yesterday. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the inflammation in my legs, if I'm holding a lot more liquid in my legs, because they are quite swollen still. So maybe that extra weight I'm carrying now is related to inflammation. Anyway, this was a great event. It was fun to see everybody. David Norris, who I talked to prior to the race, he ended up winning it, and he came from behind. On the first lap, he was quite a ways back, but then he basically crushed everybody on that final downhill to take the win. It was good to see a Nordic skier come out on top. And speaking of on top, when I got to the summit of the mountain the second time, the lead female had caught up to me, and there was a ATV with a camera following her. So she was just about to pass me as we started the downhill off the summit, and I just lost it. My feet came right out from under me, and I fell backwards and almost hit her. Or at least that's how it felt, because when I hit the ground, she was passing me. I fell quite a bit. The shoes I wore were not ideal. They're shoes that I have raced many mountain races in, but the traction was not significant enough. So I was slipping and sliding and falling a lot. I hit my shoulder both times that I fell, and at one point my arm was numb for probably 2 minutes, so I couldn't really run much, but it was so muddy at that point. It was like 8 to 10 inches of mud that we were running through on all the single track. It was crazy. So I kind of walked through there, lost a lot of time, but then the feeling comes back and I could move my arm again. Not ideal, and traction on my shoes, more traction, really aggressive lugs would have made a big difference. I still don't think I could have bumped up onto the podium just because I'm not used to downhill running yet. So I would have been less cautious on the downhills with better lugs on my shoes, but Jeff Walker, who ended up getting third, his downhill was amazing, so there's no way I could have competed with that, but I would have been closer with better lugs. Anyway, good data, good experience,
And now I'm thinking about doing a 1,500-meter race on the track June 21st? No, June 14th. It's the Vermont Senior Games. So Vermonters over the age of 50, they have a big track and field meet. Actually, they have a lot of events. They have road racing events and other events as well. But I'm going to jump into the 1,500 meter and see what I can do. Again, I don't run. I definitely don't do speed work. So I'm curious about how fast I can run a 1,500 meter, almost a mile, on a track. We will see. So, overall, successful experiment, and I look forward to more. See you soon.